want to begin by really asking about the recent Delhi case. It's recent, but it's really not an exception. An earlier incident came to light in Mumbai. And, when teenagers are navigating the world of social media, is this something that, secret chat rooms, is this something that will become more and more common?
Well, I think this is something that has been there, right? So it's more visible now because it's out there on social media. We have access to it and we see it, right? So it's always been there. It's nothing new. So sometimes there's a general discourse around this is something new. Boys nowadays talk like this. But we have to understand that blaming and shaming children and young people is not really a solution. The problem is very deeply entrenched. And the problem is not out there. It's very much, all of us are swimming in this cultural soup of toxic masculinity and patriarchy. And children are just a symptom of this what we are seeing around us. They're just mirroring some of the problems and they're just symptoms of it. This is not the real problem. Problem is very deeply rooted.
There is talk also of, of taking these boys to jail. And is punitive action the answer here? How do we deal with these boys and, make sure that such incidents aren't repeated?
See, Devina, we cannot just wash our hands off the perpetrators by shaming and handing out injunctions. That's not, because what will happen in a situation like this is immediately they will be, because these are children, right? These are 14, 15, 16-year-old children. Now, we do understand children at this stage, they are not adults. They are still, their brains are not fully formed. They are much more reactive. In a situation like this, when they feel, and that's my biggest fear right now, is that what will happen? How will they react to a situation like this? So either they will blame the girls, they will say, or they'll gaslight the girls, or they'll find other ways to be, closet themselves more and find their way through the VPN. Or they might take drastic measures because, when it's all around, everybody's talking. This is the only thing we're talking about after COVID-19. So what happens? I'm just thinking, what 14-year-old, 15-year-old boy with so much of shame and families also on top of this shaming this kid, they might end up taking drastic measures, which I don't even want to visualize.
Yeah. There's also talk of, the girls' locker room, where similar, objectification of boys, homophobia, things like that are being discussed. This isn't always a girls versus boys thing. It's a lot about entitlement. Can you talk about that a little bit?
See, I think what is there is that let's first understand there will be curiosity as children are growing up. There will be curiosity about sex. They will want to talk about sex, and they'll, typically girls will talk about, but what to be careful about first is this boy code, this boy code about manning up. I work with children, I work with young people, and I remember this young man I worked with, and he told me that, this whole pressure of manning up, and he had been expelled from a school because of this whole thing of manning up, and he had got into a situation where he had transgressed. But he said, I was just trying to show the boys that I'm a man. And see, we have to understand that, so there will be a curiosity, but I think when the transgressions happen, there is a gender politics we have to be very careful of. Now, in this, first is consent, right? Consent, where when there are boys and girls have to understand this whole issue of, especially boys need to understand what consent is, because there are there's no gray or grays in consent. It's black and white. First you ask for it, and then, only if it's clear, then you go for it. This consent is extremely important for boys to understand. And girls also need to understand that they can say, they have a right to say no. They have a right to say, no, I'm not okay with this. So understanding is very different. And I think the power dynamics are very important to understand. They're not equal. Boys and girls, no matter if they're 14 or 15 or 16, they're not equal. It's very, very different because gender politics are very different.
Yeah, so that is something that plays into it. So while we do talk about girls' locker rooms, it isn't in the same light as what is happening.
No.
Yeah. The other thing is that this is something that happened on social media. As kids are growing up these days, there's no way to avoid it. As many parental controls parents can put in place, there are ways to circumvent it. So is taking social media access away really the answer?
Actually, it's not. It's not the answer, because what you're doing basically is you are this most of what is most important in a situation like this. In a situation like this, it's an amazing opportunity for children to learn, right? And what do they need to learn? If for me, a typical, suppose there's a boy who has transgressed, who in a situation like this has posted something which is very, very objectionable and has objectified girls. So in a situation like this, it's very important. Everybody needs to come together. Parents need to have a conversation with the child. There needs to be active accountability. There needs to be repair and restitution, and there needs to be acknowledgement a wrong has been done, and a commitment, a statement of commitment that I will do this to something wrong, has to show that what I have done is wrong. It could be in terms of community service, it could be an apology letter, whatever. That's something that can be worked out. School, child, parents can sit together and work that out. So it has to be, this is what we call restorative justice, which is very different from tribal justice the way it exists nowadays. We need to have more conversations. Families resist having conversations about sex with their children. And there's a typical thing of boys will be boys. And if you see in most schools, the way girls are talked about, they talked about chicks, they are sluts, they are hoes, they are thoughts, they're acronyms for different ways boys talk about girls. And this internalization of a discourse around girls, that girls are objects, starts very early. So schools, yes, do sex education and all that, but I think a very important part of schools is to have a conversation about what is okay, what is not okay, what is consent, what is transgression, and how, and about equality, about gender politics. All these need to start from very early, and this discussion needs to be done without shaming or blaming. There's no quick fix here. And just by suspending a kid or throwing a kid out of school, that's not a solution. Because what you end up doing is you shame the kid and there's no learning there. It's a very reactive, knee-jerk reaction. And of course, when you're talking to boys, you need to bring in girls' perspectives, because there has to be accountability. Even if the girl is not present, I need to talk to the boy. Okay, so there has been a transgression. What do you think she went through?
How we can bring up, how parents can bring up girls who are already being objectified with the self-confidence to say no and to deal with these sort of things. And how different is it from how we raise our boys to, stand up against their peers who may be talking about this? Because that's something that came up a lot, that the boys need to have conversations with their friends and really, not just dismiss this as boy talk, but have that tough conversation and create more respectful relations.
Absolutely. So first of all, we as parents need to reflect how does the dad talk about the mother? How does he refer to the mother? How does the mother refer to the dad? How do they talk about boys and girls? So the whole gender talk, first of all, is first we need to reflect ourselves. Secondly, we need to have open conversations. Like suppose you're sitting watching a program on TV, or you're watching a movie, you need to make the children very media savvy. So what's happening here? What do you think is happening in this relationship? What is the power like? What do you think the girl is being objectified? Do you think in this dance, in Bollywood movies, how are girls portrayed? How are boys portrayed? So these conversations from very early age make girls aware and boys aware that this is what they're seeing is wrong, is very distorted.
So this was for parents. What about for schools? What can schools really do? Like you have touched upon this, but something like sex education, which we agree is something that should be happening in schools, but most of it is not really inclusive or comprehensive. It just sticks to basic biology at most time. It doesn't include concepts of consent or power abuse, those sort of things. So how do we go about creating more inclusive sex ed, especially for schools? How do schools, help solve this?
What I believe is that this needs to start early. We need to start a separate, I would say, a stream or let's say a subject around mental health. because mental health or mental well-being is a larger concept, which we start from the time the child is 4 years old. When the child starts understanding, okay, this is my body. What is safe touch? What is unsafe touch? Who are the people who can touch me? Who are the people who cannot touch me? And when I feel unsafe, what can I do then, right? So if we start having these conversations around what is okay, what is not okay, about feelings, how to take care of my feelings, this needs to happen every week. Every week from the time they join nursery, every week one class on mental health.